Hey everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're in my corner and I have a very special guest in the corner. Would you like to unveil your secret identity?
Yes, my name is Jonathan Coulton.
That doesn't seem so secret, but that's fine.
No, well, I, that's the only identity I have. I'm a very upfront person.
Well, maybe one day we'll make you a superhero costume and then we'll write a whole comic adventure about it. It'll be a fun, grand time.
Yeah, that sounds fine. That sounds fine.
And you can write your own music. That's the benefit of that.
That's right. I don't have to pay somebody to do it. That's the savings right there.
I don't know if you've seen this movie, but I'm totally reminded of Emperor's New Groove, where Krunk is just like sneaking around and doing da 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 da.
That's right. That's right. Little
That'll be
theme
perfect.
music. Little theme
Yes.
music for myself.
Well, for the listeners who might not be familiar with you, I obviously they should know you're a musician. If not, I gotta whack them over the head because been promoting this for a while. But what initially sparked your interest into music? Because, tinkering around with music, everybody can do it nowadays on a computer or with a guitar that their mom had, but really getting invested into it is definitely a big jump.
Yeah, well, it's always been a part of my life. I grew up in a musical family, and all my family members sang and played instruments and stuff. So it was around, and it was a hobby until pretty late in my life, into my adulthood, when I was, I guess around 35 was when I finally started doing music full time, after having spent many years doing it as a hobby that was kind of growing in size, but not really sustainable as a full time job. Um, and it was really, I don't know, it was something I always intended to do, but just never got around to doing for one reason or another.
Well, I think with those sort of careers, with the careers that have like attached fame or attached like mountains of money, and I'm being figurative here because I know that isn't all the cases. I think you get used to your daily life and having a day job, and you're like, when am I going to make that jump? Maybe I'll make it tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. And it's certainly what happened to me. I, like many people, I moved to New York City after college, and spent a few years kicking around trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. Played in some unsuccessful bands, and um, spent a lot of time drinking and hanging out with friends and doing all of our dumb jobs that we hated. And then eventually found myself in the software job, which, as it turns out, was pretty fun and fulfilling. And plus, they paid me and gave me health care. So it was like, once I found that foothold, it was kind of became more and more difficult to actually think about going hungry again.
Yeah, once you get I can relate because when you get comfortable in something, approaching something new is really hard. Like I am so latched on to 91.8 The Fan that I'm like, it's never going. It's just my teeth are sunk into it. I don't want to go away.
Right, exactly. Once you get used to it, to start over as a freshman, it seems kind of crazy.
No, I can agree with that. So, once you made the big step, when did you kind of feel like you had solidified, your career and your finances and things like that? When did that happen?
Well, the joke is that never really happens. I had an early viral success when I did a cover of Sir Mix-a-Lot's "Baby Got Back," and that got a lot of attention online, sort of overnight. And that was the first indication that I had something going on, some potential to make some things happen. And then, the first year when I did this project called Thing a Week, where I just released a new song every week that I'd recorded that week, and did that for a whole year. And somewhere over the course of that year, um, it got to the point where it was like, all right, I could see making this work. Um, and it was the result of, a bunch of continued attempts at writing songs and getting people to pay attention. And um, there were a couple of other songs that had their moments that year. And by the end of the year, it was just, I wasn't getting rich, and I hadn't really replaced my software salary at all. But I think it was somewhere in the middle of that year where I earned enough 1 month to pay for the babysitter who was taking care of my daughter while I was pretending to have a job. And that was like, oh, all right, we're actually making some headway here. And then it was just a question of, continuing to work at figuring out how to make it make sense, how to keep writing and recording and touring and all that stuff. And it's a kind of unfinished project. You spend every year you try new things and try to figure out how to stay interested and stay solvent and stay relevant.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think with you describing, doing a new piece every week, I know for a lot of people that must be that like they can't do that because they're like, how do I make this work? I made something I really like, but now, oh, maybe it's not finished yet. Oh, I got to keep tweaking with it. I can't stop. So I
Yeah,
wonder,
well,
do you have moments like that?
yeah, I have moments like that all the time. That it never gets any easier. It's very hard to start writing something, but it's even harder to stop. It's even harder to publish, I think. And because when you publish, you're basically saying this is done. This is as good as I can make it, and that's a hard thing to say. And you can spend 100 years on the last 2% of making something as good as you think it can be. And so that was the nice thing about having that self-imposed deadline, is that I had to publish at the end of every week, whether I thought it was really done or not. And I had to sort of get used to the idea of releasing stuff before it really felt finished, which I think was a really valuable exercise. Although that said, it's something that I still continue to struggle with, and I think everybody who does creative work struggles with all the time.
And I assume with the feedback that you were getting from, colleagues and fans and whatnot to that sort of, new mix every week, you could kind of evaluate it the next week and be like, let me work on this part first since it kind of fell flat on its face last week.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly the direct feedback was interesting, because I knew immediately if I'd done something good, and I quickly learned that I was never my predictions about that were never right. There were some weeks where I would say, "Oh, I really nailed it this week," and people would be like, "Eh." And there were other weeks where I was like, "This is terrible," and people would say, "This is amazing." So it's such a complete mystery, and the difference between the way things sound in your head and the way they are perceived by other people is immeasurable. And so, if there's a lesson to be learned from all that direct feedback, it's that you don't really know what you've done until everybody else hears it and tells you.
Well, now with some of your work, it's gone viral. For example, most of our fans obviously know Still Alive from Portal and things like that. So, when creating a piece like that, did you ever think, man, some of this sucks, but you know what? I got to get it done by this date?
Yeah, well, that song. That song was. I spent a long time working on that song. Not even just the writing of it, but everything leading up to it. I spent many hours on the phone with the writers of that game, talking about the character GLaDOS and talking about the plot and the backstory, and um, you know, really trying to get our heads around what the song was going to be. So by the time I got to writing it, it was kind of like we all knew where it needed to be and where it was going to go. So uh, the actual process of writing was not that difficult, but I've never really prepared to write a song in such an intense way. So that was a kind of a unique experience. But yeah, I mean, sure, anything you do, you're kind of like, maybe I could have done better if I'd spent a little longer on this thing or that thing.
Well, I think the fans, wouldn't want you to touch the original anymore because obviously everyone loves it. I go to conventions about 20 times a year and I can't leave a convention without hearing one of those songs from Portal.
Yeah, they're yeah, I mean, it's kind of a remarkable thing. For me, it's just another song that I wrote, but to see it, I mean, I've been to a few conventions as well, and when I've played that at those kinds of events, I had somebody, a friend of mine who's really outside of um, the video game nerd circles, and he saw me play that song, and it's like the whole audience was singing along and holding up their phones, and he said, "This is amazing. It's like nerd church," and it's true. It's a very, very flattering thing, and I feel really lucky to be a part of something that uh, really has taken on this sort of anthemic quality to a certain group of people. It's a bizarre and wonderful thing.
I wish I could say I didn't have a picture based on real life in my head when you said, geek church, but I did.
Yeah,
I
we
think
all we all know what that looks like.
everybody's in costumes with ridiculous makeup and wings and hair and everything else, and everyone's holding their phones with like some sort of fake, like, lighter or something.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Oh gosh. So you've been to conventions before and you've gotten to interact with the fans and, how is that sort of interaction? I'm assuming Portal is mostly what people bring up, in that geeky sort of area, but are you ever surprised by what people are like, "Oh my God, I love you for this."
Yeah, I mean, the context changes things a lot. So if I'm at PAX or something, it's a very game centric community. So yeah, Portal looms large at a place like that. And I suppose that's always a big that Portal song is always going to be a big hit. But there are other people who know me for other things, and so when I'm in a different context, like when I'm just touring and playing a show at a music venue, then that song doesn't hold quite as special a place. So everybody has their own favorites, and there are a couple that come up over and over again. And yeah, occasionally somebody will come up and say, "My favorite song of yours is this song," and I say, "That's crazy. Nobody likes that song."
Not even me. No, I'm
Not
kidding.
even me. I can't stand that song. You, sir, are a fool.
Well, it seems like you're touring quite a bit. I believe you just finished earlier in the month the Joko Cruise Crazy.
That's right. The annual fan cruise. That was the fourth one we did, and it was a ton of fun. I mean, we were all exhausted by the end, but it was really, really a great time.
I can imagine that's like, what is it, that like almost a week of just, playing around, constantly on a cruise. So if you have any seasickness at all, that must be horrible.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be okay with being on a cruise ship, which I know not everybody is, but I find it to be a kind of a great thing. It's a weird beast because you're on this. I mean, the just physicality of it is amazing. You're just on this giant ship, and the ship is so big that you forget that you're on a ship until you walk outside, at night, and you're in the middle of the ocean, and it's kind of beautiful and stunning and awe-inspiring. And at the same time, when you're inside, it's like you're in a mall. It's like it's a or like a bad hotel in Vegas. So it's a bizarre mixture of stuff that is truly incredible and stuff that is just kind of dumb and tacky. So it's a I find it to be a really interesting and inspiring backdrop for um, the content of what we do, which is, I do a couple of shows, and there are a bunch of other musicians and comedians and other kinds of entertainers who are there doing shows, and then we're all hanging out, we're all having drinks by the pool, and it's a really fun and unique event for me, and I hope for everybody else.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I will say, I hope that the cruise isn't as bad as the bad Las Vegas hotel because I live in Vegas, so I've seen those.
Oh, well, so you know what I'm
Yes.
talking about. I've always wondered what it's like to actually live in Vegas. I would
I was
imagine
born
it's
and raised.
so it's very different from visiting Vegas, I would think.
Well, I don't drink, I don't smoke.
Yeah, you don't
I'm
you don't go downtown ever, probably, right? Why would
yeah,
you?
I does like most of my family works in casinos, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
There are people that actually come in, and I don't know if you've noticed on some of the name tags in Vegas, they say where people are born. My brother was born in California, so some people assume that he drives from California every day to work.
Yeah, right. No. Yeah, that would be unreasonable.
It would, but people literally think that. They don't think people live in Vegas. It's the weirdest thing. It's just only the strip exists here, and that's, the
Right.
farthest from the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But and that's the kind of thing where it's like you can't Vegas is actually a great comparison to the cruise ship because you can't you're a tourist. If you're a tourist there, the only way to really enjoy being on the strip in some dumb hotel in Vegas is to surrender to the aesthetic completely and just sort of give in to the fact that you are eating a 32-ounce steak in the middle of a desert surrounded by a fake Paris, you know?
And take
And
those really cheesy tourist shots and everything else.
yeah, and then you can actually have fun, for a couple of days until you realize like I have to get out of here. But and it's the same thing with the cruise ship. It's like if you sit around hating everything and everyone around you because it's so dumb, then you're not going to have a good time. But if you sort of give in and participate in the ridiculousness, it becomes really fun.
Well, I don't see how people could hate that cruise that you're on because the guest list is amazing, and I'm sure the music is fantabulous, which is a word I just made up. And I believe it's a, I believe it's a yearly thing, so I'm sure the fans can look out for next year as well.
Yep, absolutely. We I think we have not we've announced the dates, but we haven't started booking yet. I think we're going to open up booking sometime, I would say late spring this year. So people should keep their eyes open. It's called jococruisecrazy.com is the website.
Very exciting. Well, we'll make sure that the IRC gets to visit the website and look up information on that while we take a short break here on 91.8 The Fans. So don't go anywhere because our special guest isn't. Keep it tuned to your favorite station where we play everything you want and nothing you don't. Hey, everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan, and my special guest is still here, alive and breathing.
Yes, Jonathan Coulton, still alive and breathing.
Yeah, okay, good. We just want to make sure because
Yep.
I don't want to get sued.
No, everything's good. Everything's good.
But for the listeners out there, are there any projects that you want them to know about? Anything you think that they would be interested in or they should support?
Well, we've already talked about the cruise. The other thing that I've been working on that's been a lot of fun is a show for NPR called Ask Me Another, which is a like a sort of a pub quiz, and it's an hour long, um, uh, funny trivia, and it's done in front of an audience here in Brooklyn, and there are contestants from the audience each other, and it's hosted by a very funny comedian named Ophira Eisenberg, who's a good friend of mine, and it's really a blast. I sort of co-host and run a couple of the games, and I also do I sort of play a Paul Schaefer role, but we do a number of games that are um, music based. So I play and sing as part of that as well. So we're in our I think second season now, and it's a really fun show. People should check their local NPR station and listen. But it's also a podcast. It's called Ask Me Another.
That seems like a lot of fun. I feel like any sort of games with music, people remember just way, way more.
Yeah, it's true, and it's really fun. I mean, it's like if you've ever been to a pub quiz, it's got that vibe. But my favorite thing is that my job is to basically stand on stage and crack jokes about the stuff that happens in the context of this live show. This live audience and these contestants who are often very nervous or uh, very funny, whether on purpose or not. But yeah,
Well,
that's a good time.
hey, that's the role where you got to get people relaxed and, especially if they're nervous on stage about screwing up, things like that. So,
That's right. To be a host,
exactly. And that's a lot of fun. I should know.
it is. It is.
Well, now, for the listeners out there who want to catch you at any events, do you have any coming up?
I actually have been taking a little break from touring lately because I'm trying to work on a new album. So I've been focusing on writing and recording as much as I can. Really, the main times that I'm appearing in public are related to that show. Ask Me Another. And I don't know. I hope that later this year I'll be able to get back into touring once I get some of this album done. But that's been my focus for a while is working on new stuff.
Well, I'm sure you'll update the fans on your Twitter, Facebook, and all those other social media sites. How can we stalk you there?
Well, of course, there's always jonathancolton.com. Although, that's mainly a blog, and geez, does anybody blog anymore? I sure don't. But there's also I'm slightly more active on Twitter as Jonathan Colton. people can. That's probably the best way to find me. But you can also email Scarface anytime you like, and Scarface will take care of any needs that you have.
Well, I will say I just have to throw that out there because I think you're the first guest we've had on that has their own wiki.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, the Jokopedia. You're talking about the Jokopedia.
Well, it's right on your website, and I've been using it for a lot of when I was doing my research on you and all that other stuff. That was literally the best place to go.
Yeah, it's the great thing about that is that it's really I haven't touched that. I haven't done anything at all to make that happen or keep it running. It's all fans and the community doing it, which is really a cool thing when it happens. And it's actually a great resource because there are lyrics and guitar tabs for every song I've ever done up there. And on top of that, there's all sorts of uh, lists of when I played those songs at which shows and links to videos and audio from those shows, and it's really a cool thing. It's like an archive. It's like I have a group of scribes who are following me around and paying attention to what I do, which is another very flattering and weird thing here in the future.
Well, it is like a TV tropes where you just get lost into it. You keep going to other like pages constantly. I totally did that for about an hour the other day.
It's the danger of hypertext.
Yeah, but hey, it was interesting. I liked looking at all the people you worked with because
Yeah.
everyone had a different sound with you, and that to me was really intriguing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's. I try to keep it interesting for myself. I try to mix it up.
Definitely. And since we're nearing the end of this interview, I was wondering if you'd be willing to participate in a 91.8 The Fan tradition.
Yeah, of course.
Wonderful. Basically, we ask if you'd be willing to do a radio bump for us.
I would.
Wonderful. The trick, however, is that we do it live on air. So if you mess up, everybody hears it.
Okay. What should I say?
Basically, we ask if you'd be willing to say, "Hello, my name is," you insert your name, "I do this." You can say whatever you want there.
All
And
right.
you're tuned into 91.8, The Fan.
We're tuned into 91.8 The Fan. Okay.
Yes. So whenever you're ready.
Okay. Are you Here we go. Hi, this is Jonathan Coulton, singer-songwriter and internet superstar, and you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan.
Why you didn't even mess up? You should become
Ah,
a voice
I'm a
actor.
I'm a radio professional. I'm on
Well,
public radio.
well, I'm just throwing it out there though. I've had like voice actors who have been in the business for 30, 40 years and they still mess up the bump.
Well, listen, I do what I can to do my best at all times.
I'm
I think
just
I've
I'm
proven that.
That's true. I will say that. You got through this wonderful interview.
Yeah, for instance.
But is there anything else you'd like to tell the listeners out there? Any words of wisdom, dating advice, predictions for the end of the world?
Uh, yeah. Be nice to each other, for God's sake. The internet is a terrible place if you let it be. Just be nice to each other. That's my main advice.
As someone who plays League of Legends, I agree with that.
Yeah, right?
That's an angry game. I don't know if you don't know if you've ever, played it or heard
I
anything about it,
I've
but
I've I've heard stories. There's a lot of angry places out there. I'm tired of angry people being angry.
I know I just like everybody to be nice and hug each other as long as they don't have cooties and everything's fine.
Me too. I agree
Yeah,
with you.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
And for any of the listeners out there that missed any of this interview, don't fret. You can find it on the website within the next few days. So keep your eyes peeled to 918thefan.com and your ears tuned to 91.8 The Fan, where we play everything you want and nothing you don't.